We're back, and of course, we're joined by the man who is no stranger to the Observer, the man himself, the former Top Cop and NTA political leader. A special good evening to Mr. Gary Griffith.
Hi, good evening. You guys are so important. I just ran out of my monthly NTA executive meeting for this interview.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm sure you're having meetings because today there seemed to have been quite an obsession with you in the parliament. Allegations, talk, and it seems to center just around one individual, which is, of course, the man we're speaking to. Why is this, Gary?
Well, it's straightforward. Good evening to you and to your many listeners. Listen, the United National Congress will always have that 250,000 votes, and that is a powerful political party. The PNM cannot rock that base at all. That base is there. But you need that extra 50 to 100,000 of those floating voters. So what Keith Rowley is doing, he has put, I am now living rent-free in his head. The country is going to be totally frustrated hearing the obsession of this man spending all his time. Have you ever heard a prime minister spending so much time speaking about a political leader of another party that is not even in parliament? Patrick Manning never once spoke about Winston Dukaran in 2007. And this, however, is Rowley has understood that the NTA, those floating voters, those voters who we represent and serve, working with other political parties will spell defeat for the PNM. So he is obsessed. He tried first with the firearms, about legal firearms. They lied, they misled the country. Then they tried with the SSA, to link me with the SSA. They realized there was nothing. There's going to be another thing coming up soon with the Ministry of Finance pertaining to procurement. That is all he's going to do. His job, the PNM's job, is always to say the same lie over and over, hope that people believe. The audacity of this man going into parliament today, you've put concerns about legal firearms, and almost going into 4 years, not one person has been charged, because you cannot charge people on lies. Notice everything he said that today. It was based on allegations. It is alleged. It is alleged. That's how PNM works. He cannot call one firearm dealer, not one firearm owner, not one police officer involved in corruption. You can't. And the only person that has been charged, has been held, was a firearm dealer in Barbados because your government gave directives to have the police go to kidnap this person. So Keith Rowley is mortified of the fact of the NTA working with other political parties to ensure his defeat. So the one thing that Keith Rowley is correct about, it is that. And that is why he will continue. I will continue to be his worst nightmare.
Yeah, but the thing about it, Gary, I mean, when you look at what's happening in this country and what's playing out in Parliament, we are now at 298 murders for the year. We're in July. We have 5 more months to go. Just today, a delivery driver in St. Anne's. And with all these allegations, why hasn't the TTPS moved on what it is that was laid out today by the Prime Minister?
Exactly, because you can't charge people based on allegations. Only in a banana republic, and there are few PNM diehard that believe the nonsense by this man. You hire people, pay them big money, and then let them write a report and then say, look at what we've heard in the report. He did the same thing with Emailgate, and he realized it worked. I am not going to allow him to fool the country again with his nonsense. I have stood up, and I have shown and exposed to the country that the man is a fraud. You have stated that all of these concerns about firearms, yet you, Keith Rowley, harass me to get a dealership license for somebody in Tobago to sell thousands of more firearms. And nobody in the media will ask him that. These are the same government ministers who harassed me to get a special gun to kill their pigs with over 500 rounds when other persons are fighting to get 10 rounds. These are the same government ministers who asked for 12 and 14 firearms for their friends in high places. So why don't you hand over all your weapons? If you have such a concern, lead by example and hand back your weapons. But no, you want to have your firearms, and then you want to have your special branch secure you as well. So the hypocrisy of this man is mind-boggling. And again, that's what I said. So he spoke about all of these reports. You had the Barrington and Prashad report. You had the Stanley John report. You had these audit fellows who you hired, and they were so stupid, they did a report without even speaking to me. Which is why the court said, wait a minute, so you did an audit report on firearms, and the person who was in charge of the police, you never spoke to him, because they were so desperate to pump their lies. And that is why he wanted to go to Parliament to read out that audit report, because it is the one place you can lie on someone and not be sued, similar to what he did with Emailgate.
Yeah, but given the impression that you hindered or put forward all these obstacles that enabled them, that didn't allow them to put this out in Parliament, is the message that basically was laid out today. that they wanted to come forward, but here it is, the former top cop put all these obstacles, and for whatever reason, it gave that whole impression that there was something to hide.
Exactly, and that is my point. Why go to Parliament? The only reason I got involved is because when I realized the coward that he was, the wimp that Keith Rowley is, he wanted to go to Parliament to read it out. I asked anyone, have you ever heard about an audit report being read out in Parliament? You read it out on a political platform and you lambaste the political opponent, you ramage. But he cannot do that, because if he calls one name and lies, then he will be sued. So he cannot discredit me and call my name on anything unless the one thing, let me tell you, Trinidad and Tobago, defamation only happens if it is that it is untrue. If it is true, you have nothing to hide. So if he's so sure of these allegations, go out. He could have gone out in public, go on a political platform, his post-cabinet meeting, and say, Gary did this, Gary did that, Gary did the other. But there is no evidence, no witnesses, no proof, no report. No one sent anything to the police. But you have these three sets of jokey reports. And as I said, if these things were so damning, were so serious, how come nobody has ever been charged? Not one person has been charged based on what was put in the reports. This man spoke about 35 legal firearms being involved in murders. Have you all aware of who had a legal firearm that killed anyone in the last couple of years, other than one or two persons from domestic violence? He then spoke about persons changing their legal firearms to automatic. That is a criminal offense. Call the names of the person. Call the name of the police officer who approved it. He's a liar. He then spoke about persons who had criminal records. You cannot get a firearm unless you have a certificate of character. So he lied. He spoke about persons who were involved in domestic violence with their wife. Their wife has to approve and give full authorization before you could get it. So the man has lied constantly. And what he did again today was to go in Parliament as the coward that he is, because he cannot face Gary Griffith mano a mano in public. I am asking the public, let today be the day that the deciding factor. I am challenging Keith Rowley to a public debate on any aspect in governance, anything, not security alone, whether it's health, education, sport, tourism, the economy. Keith Rowley cannot match me mano a mano on a debate. He is very weak. He's a coward, and I recall that, so because when I was speaking to him as commissioner, he can't even look at me in my eyes. He is very intimidated by me, and his biggest fear is not Gary Griffith, but the people who support the NT and Gary Griffith, that if they join with that other major political party, he's going to get the cuttail of his life come general election.
And so you do expect the attacks to intensify as things draw closer to the general election?
Yeah, definitely. That is what they do. Listen, the PNM mandate is, look, their concept is, we are clueless, we are dumb, we don't have the intellectual ability to govern, we have failed the country, we cannot balance a budget. I have an auditor general trying to say a couple $1 billion missing, brother man. So they are clueless. So what they turn to is like, look, yes, country, we have failed, we do not know how to govern, we do not know how to balance the budget, but them thief, them corrupt. That's what they do. That is all they do. That is what they live on. And that is the PNM style. So this is what is good. They're going to push, because Gary Griffith is going to show to the country that I am going to make Trinidad and Tobago safe again. I am going to put back the things in place. When I worked with Kamala Prasad Bisesa as a minister, it was even a greater level of security even than when I was a commissioner, because as a commissioner I had to work with nincompoops in the National Security Council of the PNM. At least when I was minister, I worked with someone who had the intellectual ability as a prime minister to give me the leeway for me to go forward with projects such as the Rapid Response Unit, the E999, the National Operations Center, the Community Comfort Patrol. When I drafted the Ministry of Justice she established it. When I showed her the concept of breaking the Ministry of National Security to the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Home Affairs. That is how we're going to see the transformation of Trinidad and Tobago, not just in security, but every aspect. I am doing a media conference on Saturday for the launch of the National Transformation Alliance headquarters in St. Joseph, and I will be explaining to the country that this alliance that is going to be formed is not one of just us joining together to beat the PNM. There's going to be a cohesion that is going to cement this alliance based on a proper structure of good governance through a roadmap towards ensuring that every arm in the government would ensure the maximum productivity this country has never seen before.
And let me ask you, this polygraph testing bill that was just passed, do you think it's a step in the right direction?
Definitely not, because the polygraph test is not admissible in court. That's one. Two, I did the same thing as the commissioner of police. A polygraph test could be, it's supposed to be voluntary. So to get into the police service, if you don't want to do it, you can't get in. If it is that you want to get in the special branch, you can't get in. And then I realized we had criminal elements or questionable elements in the Southwestern Peninsula. I asked the simple question, do you financially benefit from illegal guns, drugs, weapons, human trafficking entering the country? Those who did not want to be polygraphed, I transferred to the middle of Trinidad. And so it worked along that line. But to make it mandatory that you want to polygraph every police officer on an annual basis or something, it is going to cost tens upon tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. It is very expensive. That's one. Two, it is not foolproof. Three, it is not admissible in court. So there's going to be a lot of legal ramifications. But more importantly, if you want to do it, lead by example. I took my polygraph test as commissioner of police and I topped the merit list, getting 20% more than Earl Christopher. So I have done my polygraph test locally. I went to Miami and did my polygraph test and I could show it to the media. I challenged Keith Rowley to be polygraph tested as well. You cannot demand the police officers to be polygraphed and to do something you're not prepared to do yourself. That is leadership by example. And the question that should be asked with him, did you pump $45 million into the police account and direct the commissioner of police to hire foreign attorneys without a proper procurement process to target political opponents and make these attorneys SRPs? Did you harass a commissioner to give a firearm dealership to somebody you know in Tobago? Are you aware of a government minister that gave a directive for the police to go to Barbados to arrest a political opponent? To arrest a firearm dealer. Did you meet with a junior constable constantly in the diplomatic center and that was giving you briefings as it pertained to firearms? Those are the type of questions that I want. Did you harass the commissioner, the director of the SSA to appoint a junior police officer to be in charge of all the intercept equipment, and when they refuse, you try to fire them? Those are the questions he should be prepared to be polygraphed. I am prepared to be polygraphed on anything. I want Keith Rowley to do the same. Lead by example. You cannot ask the police officers to do something that you're not prepared to do yourself.
You know, many times you weigh in on the policies of the TTPS, and I don't think that it's meant to basically say that you're looking for kinks in the armor. You do want this thing to run perfect so that way there can be better service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You spoke about these feedback bins that was introduced by the Commissioner of Police earlier here with Christopher at the St. Joseph Police Station. These boxes, I believe, are meant to get feedback from the general public as to complaints and what have you. You, of course, have made it quite clear that it's outdated, it's archaic, and it's simply out of touch. Expand on that.
Yeah, sure. Earl Christopher could act in, and herself and McDonald Jacob and Stephen Williams in Jurassic Park 4. They are dinosaurs. This is what happened before I was commissioner. The boxes were empty. You had spiders in those boxes doing bungee jumping up and down. Nobody is going to waste their time to type a letter, seal it, and drop it in a box in a police station. It is totally ridiculous. So when I checked with all of these boxes, you would probably get about a handful of recommendations annually. When I introduced technology into the police service, telling persons, you have a concern, you have a recommendation, you have information pertaining to rogue elements in the police service, WhatsApp me directly, 482 Gary. Send it on online reporting. Use the police app. That police app was the largest app in the country, over 485,000 users, because the country embraced technology. Your husband is beating you, you have to go to the police station, you type online, you send the report, and we're going straight to him and taking him down and arrested him. That is what built public confidence and trust. The boxes was the era of Stephen Williams, where public confidence was 14%. When I brought in the technology of the online reporting, the police app, the 482 Gary, it went up to 59%, because the public trusted the police now, because they realize a police officer who's in a roadblock that will abuse someone, that will be disrespectful to some lady, that will be running a drug block, they send it to 482 Gary, they send it on online reporting. There's a degree of confidentiality. So no police officer in a roadblock was willing to take the chance, because somebody will just text 482 Gary, this man just customer, or this man just tried to bribe me for a firearm. That is what transformed the police service. So the police officers started to be fully respectful of the citizens. They were loving, they were kind. People started looking forward to see police officers in roadblocks. When you removed all of that, it went down to the lowest number in all of the arms of the public service, 8%. And now she has gone back to something that is not going to be of value because you've removed the technology that allowed the public to have easy access. And this was not just in giving information about rogue police officers. We were bombarded with information of a hit about to take place. You know how many lives we saved through SORT when we got this online reporting and police app that allowed the police to be aware this person is in this vehicle now about to kill a prison officer, and we will intercept that vehicle. All that has stopped. So when it is you saw the lowest number of the highest reduction, in violent crime in 17 years, it was because of systems that allow the public to interact with the police. Now you're going back to Jurassic Park 4, taking an envelope and drop it in a mailbox.
And I agree with you, Gary. I mean, I agree with you on that 100. The reason being is that many times when you are faced with having to deal with something of a criminal nature or some injustice, and you're told, listen, you need to go to the police station and make a report. Many citizens, and I can tell you this, many citizens dread that. I mean, they dread that because it's quite an experience where it shows sometimes the customer service skills are not there. I came to report this. All right, where it happened? You need to go down so. You don't have all the information. The printer didn't set up any books. I mean, you dread it because the experience is not something where you have full confidence in. And when you talk about on time as far as getting feedback, that's what we want. That's what we want as citizens. We don't want to dread the experience of making a report, filing a report, and then having to wait to get justice because, I mean, it just does not make sense. Why would they now go back to a system that has proven that it is not as advanced as where we need to be?
It is because, again, Christopher, they do not understand we are now getting close to the second quarter of the 21st century. So their policing is what happened when they joined the police service in the 70s or 80s. Old-time policing, wearing gabardine, holding a cane, trying to have this using a police box. So when it is that I introduced the type of technology, body cameras, pepper spray, tasers, the technology of online reporting, police app, the gender-based violence unit, we had a social media monitoring unit that I piggybacked from NYPD, where they'll be monitoring everything online, because a lot of criminals, they boast about a crime, they talk about a crime that intend to take place. They get information and they extract that to be able to solve a crime. That's all of these things they shut down out of basic government pettiness and being weak and not understanding how to embrace this technology. And it is unfortunate, but that is what this Police Service Commission have stated, that it is good. I will always ask the Police Service Commission, show us this file and this report of Christopher that you can claim she got a good grade after the last year. Because the main thing is not just about reducing crime. That's it. Your first year is going to be difficult. So let's not bash you on that. But it is how the public perceives you, one, and two, how the public perceives the police service. Those are the two main areas that you measure the performance of a commissioner. It was 89%. They were comfortable with me or had no concern. In the report, I think it's less than 10%. With the public confidence in the police service was 59%. Now it's 8%. And this is what the police service commission should be fired. But they were hired by a president who did not even want to adhere to the law by filing a merit list. So this is what happens when politicians appoint a president. So the president is a political appointee who then handpicks persons in a police service commission.
All right. And let me ask you, of course, you did mention that you're going to have a press conference at the new headquarters. You made it quite clear this move is to get closer to the intended constituents. This is quite a big move. Are you definitely making this transition to cement yourself and the NTA in St. Joseph?
Yeah, well, definitely. It has been stated that I am the candidate for the NTA for St. Joseph. And in this, I don't think there's any other political party that has a political office in this area. Some people will have members of parliament offices. That's totally different. You can't use your MP office as your political office. So we have now put ourselves in the belly of the beast. Who wins the corridor wins the election. So this St. Joseph office will assist us in our campaign trail in Sawa Barataria, in Tunapuna, in Lopino Bonaire, La Hoquita, Talparo, Dabadi Omera, Arima. And we will also be setting up an office as well in San Fernando West. It will be announced sometime next week. We're also looking at San Grande Gandhi. So we are looking at and that when we did our polls, we saw that's exactly where there's the bulk of those floating voters. That is why when I walked in that local government election for the UNC candidates, it wasn't just to lose 25 pounds, but I walked for several hours daily in San Fernando West, working with the UNC candidate to get the previous COP voters to vote for them. That is why I turned from 6-3 to the PNM to 5-4 and scraping to hold on to the 5th seat. That is why Sangre Grande was the same thing. When it moved from 5-4 to the UNC to 6-3, because I brought back out those previous COP voters. And anytime that happens, those previous ONR, NAR, COP voters who are now NTA, working with the major political party against the PNM, it will always ensure victory. It was 60,000 more votes than the PNM in local government election. And again, we intend to continue to work with other political parties. But as I said, in that media conference, I will explain how we intend to cement that alliance to ensure there will never be a repeat of what happened with the NAR and with the People's Partnership. This is going to be cemented based on a general agreement of good governance through a roadmap towards the transformation of Trinidad and Tobago, not political parties just joining up to beat the PNM.
You know, some political analysts have weighed in on the fact that when it comes to the NTA, it's just Gary. Are we going to start seeing other people step up to the podium, make their contribution, just to show exactly that there's a diverse cross-section of representation that will be available within the party?
Yeah, definitely not. It just probably has to do with personalities. You'll say that the people voted for the UNC because of Basio Pandey. People voted for the PNM because of Manning. The leader obviously will show some degree of authority that the country will say. And sometimes people vote for leaders. Most people voted in 2010 because they compared Kamala to Rowley. To Patrick Manning. People will make decisions based on the leadership, but it does not. In the NTA, you will see we have our executive meeting was just completed, and we have 25 very powerful persons, and I say powerful as it pertains to their involvement, whether it is in their field, whether it is in the community. We have an individual who was in Lupino Bonnier. The PNM won that seat by, I think, almost 1,100 votes in 2020 in local government. She cut it down to less than 200. We have several other individuals who would have done the same. They went into the belly of the beast in PNM's heartland, and it showed the passion that they have and the ability for them to turn PNM voters into floating voters. We have other persons such as Christina Wallach Hussain, who is a member of parliament. We have Dr. Kevin Saran, and many other persons who have that ability to show that they are good leaders, not by leading, but by serving. And it's just unfortunate that the media does not fully appreciate by trying to interview these individuals. But we have a team. My success as a security minister, as a commissioner, as a member of the Defense Force was never based on Gary Griffith, but by me forming a proper team around me, and not a team of yes people. When a political leader only wants yes people around them, you are going to fail. I need people around me that are willing to stand up and say this is wrong, and then we can debate it to come up with a proper decision.
Final question. The Prime Minister has been toying with this election date, making statements at the PNM Family Day, then coming back to Parliament and saying don't expect anything to happen soon. What says you when you look at that?
I will consider it shows that Keith Rowley is a child. That is wimpish. It is arrogance. It shows the importance of us changing this constitution. Where you have a prime minister being so petty to be waving a flag and saying, I have the date in my back pocket, but I'm not letting all you know. I mean, that is childish. So you say one thing and you come back and you pull on it. But my take on this personally is that he made the call too soon. And by doing that, he has lifted the alarm bells of all the other political parties. So the element of surprise he has now lost. So he had to run back now and do a U-turn. They say, no, it's not true. I was only joking. I am not taking that beat. I am still banking on what I have heard about an election in November, December this year. If it goes longer, it will just be more licks to him. So all these other political parties must prepare for an election late this year. We must be prepared for that. And if it goes after, well, then we'll have extra time to play with. Right now, he has made that mistake by stating, you are not going to be calling. I've never heard PNM have nominations for candidates for constituencies for a general election over a year before an election. Let us understand exactly what is happening. And that's where all the political leaders must understand the importance that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. We work together with a common factor, the PNM will be defeated, which is what I think the vast majority of the country wants.
Thank you so much, Mr. Griffith. Keep up the good work, as always, very enlightening, and best of luck. We'll be speaking to you periodically. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take a short